What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right. This is a request from one of my subscribers, the Bloodprint. He wanted me to do a video talking about uh, this picture and what this image means to me. Um, this image is cropped a little bit more, but if it was the full image, it would say under it champions. And that's exactly what we see in this photo. All right. This image makes me long for a long since bygone era when it comes to boxing. You know, this country likes to, pretend that certain things don't exist. This country was founded on violence. This country was torn apart by violence. And the few rights and privileges that we have as a people were gained by violence and sacrifice. What I'm basically getting at is that we are a violent society. The statistics prove it. You know what I'm saying? Our history proves it. But, now we want to live in this fake facade of a society where we pretend that, certain things don't happen or only happen in certain communities. We're violent people, okay? And boxing was once a massive, massive part of the sport lexicon in our society. Um, but over the past 40 years, definitely the past 25 years, um, we've tried to pretend as if we're more civilized now, and that boxing is for savages, it's for a generation that's out of touch, out of step. It's nonsense. It's nonsense, man. While boxing has steadily declined, mixed martial arts and UFC have skyrocketed because it's in our nature to want to see bloodshed. Okay. Um, I hope I'm not sounding a little weird talking like this, but I'm just being honest. Okay. We don't want necessarily to see people die. No, we don't want to see people die, but we do, to an extent, live through the exploits of these great fighters. Okay, and pictured here are five of the greatest fighters of all time. They represent the golden era of boxing, in my opinion, the 1960s and 1970s, and most definitely the golden era of the heavyweight division. Of course, in this picture you have Ken Norton, George Foreman, Larry Holmes, Joe Frazier, and Muhammad Ali. When I look at this photo, not only do I see champions, I see eloquence, I see greatness personified, I see respect, I see, to go deeper with it, I see five individuals who overcame Jim Crow of the 1940s and 1950s and grew to rise, for the most part, most of them out of poverty. I wouldn't necessarily say Ali was in poverty, but he definitely was at least, middle class, but still, he overcame poverty in the sense of being a second-class citizen, all of them, all right, to become sports royalty. Now, Ali, of course, is the most exalted, but all of these individuals, all of them, are top-tier champions, all right? Some may say, well, maybe Ken Norton is the weak link in this one, man, but Ken Norton in any other era, okay, in any other era of boxing, would have been a long reigning heavyweight champion, okay? And Ken Norton as we all know, gave Muhammad Ali fits, right? And he, uh, fought Larry Holmes toe to toe. So he was in their league. And one of his sons was a great, great football player too in the NFL. I think at the time this photo was taken, I think it was the late 1980s. George Foreman had just started his comeback trail, which most people laughed at. When he started his comeback trail, George Foreman was 320 pounds, 100 pounds higher than his weight when he fought in Rumble in the Jungle. And through sheer determination, George Foreman eventually got back to the promised land. It took him 7 years, because I believe he began his comeback in 1987. But people didn't take him seriously. They was like, well, if Larry Holmes got knocked out by Mike Tyson, the first only time in his career he was ever knocked out in a professional bout, if the master boxer Larry Holmes is not what he once was, how would a lumbering slugger be able to catch up with these young lions of the 1980s and 1990s? You know what I'm saying? But George Foreman was able to come back and hold his own against a championship level boxer in Evander Holyfield. And he made history that one brilliant night in November of 1994 against Michael Moore. Larry Holmes is probably, out of the five pictured, the most skilled boxer, right? Matter of fact, I think it's probably not even a debate about it. Larry Holmes is the most skilled. Some may question his era that he dominated in. Some may question whether he was a cheap replica of Muhammad Ali. But when it comes to his jab, it was the best jab probably in heavyweight history. He had one of the longest reigns in heavyweight history, and he was undefeated in his first 48, I believe, professional bouts. And he had a very successful second half of his career, considering his age. And Joe Frazier didn't take any shit from anybody, man. You know what I'm saying? It pained him that he didn't get the credit that he felt he deserved. It pained him. He felt he carried with him almost to the grave a lot of bitterness toward boxing to an extent. And, of course, unfortunately, he carried a lot of bitterness toward Muhammad Ali. He felt that he didn't get the credit he deserved to be a champion because he won his title during Ali's exile, and he didn't get the credit he deserved for beating Muhammad Ali when he was in his prime. He beat Muhammad Ali in 1971. Ali was only 29 years old at the time, so that was his prime. Ali was able to come back and beat Joe Frazier, of course, in the rubber matches, of course, and also the Thriller in Manila. But Joe Frazier has bragging rights on who won when they fought each other in their absolute primes. So, of all these five individuals, you know what I'm saying, you long for an era where people were fans of the sport itself, and it wasn't debased to the point where it is now, where people are living through some, I don't know, some self-righteous, you know, uh, people living through some self-righteous plot where, you know, they use boxing as a smokescreen for their hatred, their racism, whether or not, you know, they despise a whole other group of individuals. So they rally behind a certain boxer because they're envisioning themselves beating up an African American, or they envision themselves beating up whatever race because they're frustrated with the world or society as a whole. And these are things, man, that sadden me as a former boxing fan. I mean, aside from the sport itself, where we no longer get the fights that we want to get, uh, guys are scared to fight other fighters because they don't want to take risk. You know, guys only fight once a year or once every other year now. It's deplorable what boxing has become, man. Never, not that boxing was ever perfect. It never was. But as a consumer, boxing has given us less and less. These guys used to fight. Some of these guys used to fight, especially in Ali's case. These guys used to fight maybe like 3, 4, 5 times a year. And if you fight 5 times a year, I don't mind if you fight 4 bums. As long as you fight one contender, you can fight 4 bums because at least you fought somebody once a year. But these guys today, they don't even want to do that. Now I understand the health risk, when it pertains to, pugilistic endeavors. But hey, you're in that sport, and you guys are getting paid way more money nowadays. These champions ever did. So, still, if you want to be seen in the light that these guys shine, which that's not going to ever be the case, but if you want to even be seen anywhere near the light of these guys, give us the fights that we want to see. Okay? Another thing that has to be said before I end this video is that all of these great champions and all of these fighters, to me, are in the top 20. All right? Ken Norton a little bit lower, but the other 4, in my opinion, are top 10 all-time heavyweights. One thing they all have in common is that they have all lost and have come back to persevere. Ken Norton came back from that, for him, devastating loss in 1976 to Muhammad Ali. He felt that he won. All right. He felt that he beat Muhammad Ali twice. All right. He didn't let that loss defeat him. He came back and ultimately won a version of the heavyweight championship and fought with respect. All right. And gained respect of millions for his performance against Larry Holmes. George Foreman, we all know that he was the Mike Tyson of his era, mean, surly. But he suffered the greatest defeat of his career at the hands of Muhammad Ali when nobody thought that he was going to lose that match. Nobody, except for maybe Muhammad Ali himself. That loss psychologically damaged George Foreman for the rest of his career in the 1970s, to the point where he retired, became a man of God. He came back in the late 80s, heavier, but actually, a better overall boxer. And he was patient. He waited his chance. He waited his chance. He waited. And just when it seemed like his window of opportunity had sealed on him, he got that chance with Michael Moore, and he took the best of it and made the best of that opportunity. And he won the championship 20 years after he lost it. Larry Holmes, for the first 48 bouts of his professional career, was undefeated until he ran into an individual named Michael Spinks. The Spinks jinx gave Larry Holmes problems, and he lost 2 consecutive bouts. Those who were rooting against Larry Holmes because they didn't want him to touch the great Marciano's record, they exulted when he lost, but Larry Holmes was able to come back, and as a 40-year-old boxer, was able to gain some signature victories. All right, some signature victories over some of the best fighters of the 1990s. Joe Frazier was able to overcome that devastating loss that he had toward George Foreman on January 22nd, 1973. And while he was, for the rest of his career, a diminished boxer, he fought with dignity, he fought with honor, and he fought with the respect of millions around the world. And he died a legend. Muhammad Ali overcame so many different adversities in his life. When it came to legal issues for declaring his opposition to the Vietnam War, to the professional losses that he suffered, first to Joe Frazier, then to Ken Norton. And he regained the title against Foreman in Zaire. And ultimately, he became the first man ever to regain the title twice. He was a heavyweight champion 3 times in his professional career. In his post-career, he gained even more respect for his quiet and dignified battle against Parkinson's syndrome, which he battled for officially over 30 years. But if you follow boxing, he probably started having symptoms of it as early as 1977. So for nearly 40 years, Ali battled Parkinson's syndrome, a battle that he wavered all the way until that unfortunate day in June of 2016. So why do I say all of this? Deontay Wilder suffered the first setback of his career. And Deontay Wilder will be able to overcome this loss because he's a champion. And we all have faith in Deontay Wilder. And he will one day be amongst those that we call the proud great champions of the heavyweight division.